Hello everyone, welcome back to another episode of r/Entitled Parents. In today's episode, entitled parent gets mad at me for opening a sanitary pad in a public toilet and for being at the zoo without any children. A neighbor who I considered a good friend in my old neighborhood yelled at anyone who parked in front of her house. My parents want me to break up with my boyfriend as they think he is disrespectful and manipulative and not a good fit. What do I do? Before we get started, make sure to subscribe so you will never miss a video. So let's get started. Entitled parent gets mad at me for opening a sanitary pad in a public toilet and for being at the zoo without any children. This happened to me earlier today. There is this mini zoo not too far away from where I live, only animals like small monkeys and other creatures, nothing too massive there. My boyfriend and I decided to go because he told me that he had never seen a red panda or a capybara and the zoo had both of these animals. Anyway, sometime at the zoo, I went to go use the bathroom. I was on my period where a mother and her 4/5-year-old son were in there. I opened the pad and minded my own business where she started yelling at me for being inappropriate around her son. I was confused, so I asked her what I did wrong and she said that I was introducing adult activities to her little boy and he was asking for some of the sweets that I had. She wasn't wrong. Her son was having a tantrum on the floor because he thought the pad opening was some sweets. I apologized and went to go wash my hands. She then looked at me and asked where my kids were. I say I didn't have any kids. She then asked me who I was with and I just told her that I was with my boyfriend. She lost it again, saying that my boyfriend and I were selfish for taking up slots at the zoo for a family that could have needed it, and that I should have done something else because apparently adults cannot have fun or go to zoos anymore. I didn't know what to say and I was really confused, so I just left. I met up with my boyfriend after I left the bathroom and told him what happened. He didn't believe me until the lady came storming up to me again and demanded that I buy her son some sweets as I'd upset him and led him on and to leave so we could give our spots to other families. My boyfriend is a very tall and scary looking Romanian man, and here in the UK, people are really scared of Eastern Europeans, so it only took him opening his mouth and asking her what she meant to get rid of her. He also then believed me after this. So yeah, that was something. I want to know how she thinks a period is an adult activity, like some girls can still be single digits and get them. Some parents be crazy though. If my kids thought someone was having sweets, I'd be telling them to mind their own business, not make a fuss thinking my kids are entitled to other people's property. I was 8 when I had my first period. Although in very disturbing and sickening examples of how young a girl can be, the youngest mother on record was only 5 when she gave birth. She never revealed who the father was. Her parents took her to the doctors unaware of her precocious puberty. Precocious puberty is under 8 for a girl and under 9 for a boy. I assume if it happens her son, she'll blame Opie for showing him adult things, and the zoo for letting Opie in without children so she could do this to her precious baby. It would have been funny if your boyfriend asked, "Where is your husband?" It's strange to be at the zoo without a mate. Or did you kidnap this little boy? I'm glad you didn't encounter her anymore after that. That would have been great. If there is a next time, I'll save it for that. Better yet, ask her what her husband's first/last name is. Respond, "Hey, that's my boyfriend's name." What a coincidence. Even if you had sweets, the entitled woman's son has no business expecting OP sweets. Exactly. What happened to teaching kids to not take things from strangers? Even if we breeze past the don't take sweets from strangers, why would you want to give your kid lollies opened in a public toilet? XD. Slots at the zoo? Sure, there might be capacity. But I am sure not everyone in the city is trying to go to the zoo at once. That lady is delusional. On top of the whole pad thing, if his son thinks he can get sweets from strangers, there is a whole other issue going on there, too. Does she think if someone next to her pulls out a candy bar, they have to have one readily available for her son? What kind of crazy is she? There were time slots and you had to book in advance online. It came in during COVID and it kind of stuck, but I doubt the zoo would have became full, and even if it did, it was open every day until 4 so they could have got in. Exactly, you usually teach kids not to take anything off strangers, and who brings out sweets in a public toilet? This reminds me of another Karen who posted a rant about a lot of childless couples / people being at Disneyland / Disney World. Like you have to have kids if you want to get ripped off by Disney or something. LOL. Heading to the UK in April and possibly planning to take the kids to one of these little zoos on Easter Monday. Wondering how I should be prepared for entitled parents or children? It's a bank holiday, so I know it will be busy. I'll bring extra pads in case a kid wants candy, I guess. That sounds so great, I bet they would love that. My advice would to be just ignore them and let your family have a great day out. These entitled people are rare and I kinda got unlucky that day. Thanks, now all I can think of is offering a pad under the stall to share and the kid sticking it to himself and running away with shrieking mom chasing after. So did they hear you opening your pad inside a closed stall? This is so weird. Yes, they heard me opening the pad inside a closed stall. If it was in the middle of the toilets I might be able to understand, but that was out of line. A neighbor who I considered a good friend in my old neighborhood yelled at anyone who parked in front of her house. She was always telling people to move their vehicles. She doesn't have a driveway. I tried my best to understand her dilemma. She got extremely mad at me because I had to tell her granddaughter to learn to mind her own business and that she was disrespectful and too needy. Always asking for things to eat or to buy her things and her stupid jokes, and that she gossips too much. So when my husband was diagnosed with stage 4 cancer while we were in the midst of moving to our new house, all our family and friends rallied around us to help with the moving. One of my cousins parked in front of her house. He is a police officer, had to complain to her landlord. She screamed at him because she had to park up the street. It made me really mad, so I asked him to bring his extra car and to park it in front of her house when she was at work. She didn't know who the vehicle belonged to and we occasionally turned it around every few days. That's a petty revenge. Someone parked in front of our house, so our friend parked in front of the house next door. We hear a commotion from outside and the old bat next door is laying into our friend's car with her cane. We all rush out and she starts screaming at him for parking in front of her house. Cops were called as she had already dented the bonnet of his car. It had plenty of previous damage, but he was worried about the windows. It took the cops about half an hour to get her to understand it was a public street and anyone could park there, during which she came very close to being arrested. She hadn't been about 80, she wouldn't have received the leeway she got. She may have been old, but she had a good arm on her. Love the revenge. Street belongs to no one. After I had been living in a house I owned for several years, my new neighbor who was renting informed me that I could no longer park a vehicle in front of his house. After some arguing, I started storing my motorcycle directly in front of his house. 24/7. My current neighbor parked across the 2 spots in front of my house. She has 3 and a 2-car garage and 1 car. She then yelled at me when I asked her to please scoot forward or backwards to open the 2nd spot up. This is on top of throwing stuff at our house, losing her mind over us working during the day, and her boyfriend being arrested for trying to bust into another neighbor's garage. We have nowhere else to park. So I started parking my big 7.3L diesel truck in front of her house, and I idle it and shift it around every single day. Diesel costs me nothing compared to hearing her scream inside her house when it's on or hearing her lose it at officers telling her I can legally park there. I remember when I moved out of my old house we had some people come over to see the house and they were interested, while they parked in front of one of our neighbor's house for like 10 minutes at best, and the neighbor swore and shouted at them, which of course made them change their mind about getting the house. I live down the street from a school with a playground, park and multiple fields that are booked for sports tournaments from May till November. Parking on weekends fills before 7 a.m. and spills into the neighborhood streets and drives everyone nuts. I never say a word unless they dump garbage, park on the actual curb or block my driveway and mailbox. They are just having a good time with their families. I try to mow after they clear out, and if I was smart, I'd pull out a couple of coolers, go get some ice and Gatorade and sell them in my driveway. I'd make a killing. Block mailbox? I'm not American enough to understand. How do you block a mailbox with a car? I would have messed with her until she threatened to call the police, then just have your cousin show up, lol. She'd get what she wanted with the cops showing up, but unfortunately for her he'd be fully informed on the situation and aware of her BS. Alternatively, you could also maybe ask and see if he'd be allowed to park a patrol car there, cause who's she gonna complain to if the cops are the ones parking there? LOL. I love this and love the stones it takes to leave the car there for weeks. My neighbors and I each have a driveway, but they insist on parking one car on the street between our houses. There is space for 2 cars. They park smack in the middle of this space. Whenever it's open, I park my car just close enough to my own driveway that it looks like both will fit, but just far enough away that they block their own by about 2 feet. They can still park there and maneuver their other car into the driveway just fine. But it feels great to cause a minor inconvenience. Ugh, hate this stuff. I have a neighbor who puts a cone down in front of his place so he always has the spot, but we're in a city and spots are hard to come by. Isn't that illegal? One of my neighbors used to put her garbage cans on the street so nobody could park in front of her house. Thing is that she had a driveway and only had 1 car. Her immediate neighbors called the cops and the parking hogger was warned not to do that anymore. My parents want me to break up with my boyfriend as they think he is disrespectful and manipulative and not a good fit. What do I do? Edit, my parents do give notice and I always do let my boyfriend know when they're coming over. It's not a surprise. He knew they were over at our house that day. Another Reddit, I guess I should also mention that one, my boyfriend isn't always a bad host, but I guess somehow manages to not match up to my parents' expectations of being a host every time, such as not saying come in when opening the door for them. 2. My mom is quite demanding and so is my dad sort of. It's been hard finding independence and my voice with them. Even moving out was a big deal that I had to convince them about. While they do love and care for me, they do feel like I am still supposed to do what they tell me to do as their daughter. They've improved and loosened their reins on me, but that battle is far from over for me. Also, for e.g. my dad forgetting to wish my mom happy Mother's Day or happy birthday as soon as he sees her in the morning has become a huge deal in the past. 3. My mom especially has even lost friendships because of not getting her way and her friend not wishing her a happy birthday, etc. She even seems entitled over whether my brother's fiancé wears blue eyeshadow or not. Even if the blue eyeshadow is ugly, I feel like that's not my mom's problem to solve. I, F24, have been dating my boyfriend, M27, for around 1.5 years now, and he had been introduced to my parents 2 months into dating. I moved in with him 5 months into dating, so I've been living together for a year now. Moving in together introduced no issues into our relationship and has been an amazing year. For context also, we all live in London. My family moved here when I was a baby. I am Indian and boyfriend is Fijian Indian, and he has been trying to learn my language as I and my parents would prefer that, mainly to pass down my language to my kids. He comes over to my parents' house with me for weekly language lessons with my mom. Although my parents know English, they converse with him mainly, but not all the time, in our native language to help him pick the language up and expect him to reply back in the same language. The problem is, my family is now very against him and want me to break up with him. They say that he's not family-oriented and doesn't care about anyone/anything. They gave various reasons for this, including him making us wait for 10 minutes the very first time I brought my family over to his place. We waited in the apartment lobby as he was late and he didn't apologize for his making us wait at all. After this, he has been late to family visits and has made us, me and BF, late to events many times because he showers for too long and generally doesn't manage his time well. It has been annoying and stressful for me to be the one to always nag and keep pushing him to get ready on time. He didn't wish my mom happy Mother's Day and didn't wish my parents a happy anniversary even after he was asked to. Both days my parents were over at our apartment. He wasn't apologetic that he forgot about it either. When my mom asked him where's my wish, he just grudgingly said happy anniversary. Him not taking the exit that my dad told him to when he was driving our family. My boyfriend agreed to take this certain exit off the motorway but ended up forgetting, I assume, and took another one. Him not greeting my parents and saying hi, how are you, when he walked into our apartment while my parents were over. He just looked annoyed. Boyfriend said he was tired but that he did say hi, but I'm not too sure whose POV is right. After boyfriend walked in though, he proceeded to sit quietly in a corner on his phone and not interact with anyone, which my parents found rude. Boyfriend didn't help to set the table for dinner at our apartment even after my mom said she was hungry and my parents had to do it themselves. I had popped out to the shops at this time, so I didn't know what happened. I can't tell if my family is nitpicking or if this stuff is actually something that should be taken as an indication that my boyfriend isn't a good fit for the future. I don't want to lose my close relationship with my family, but at the same time I don't want to lose my boyfriend as I have been happy with him. I am moving out alone soon, have to appease my parents, but also to experience living alone for a while and to see if the issues die down. I guess some of the problems were also caused by us living together and my parents having to see him every time they came to visit me. Forget about what your parents think about his behavior. What do you think about his behavior? While I agree with them in most cases that what he did wasn't appropriate, I don't think it's that huge a deal. I wouldn't break up with him over it. I'm not a fan of him making us late all the time, but that's something I'm willing to work through. I don't think his behavior is hints of an underlying manipulative, rude, spiteful persona. This seems like a one-sided relationship. I read what he has to learn for you. That your parents won't speak English. Your father tell him who to drive. He comes home tired and finds your parents there. Does your boyfriend ever mention your parents interfering too much? How often do you see them? How often do they come over? How often do you bring your parents' opinions into decision making with your boyfriend? The only real problem between the two of you is his time control. That is something that should be discussed and fixed between the two of you. I think, perhaps, that you have to learn to live without your parents hovering, not learn to live without your boyfriend. I am moving out alone soon, have to appease my parents, but also to experience living alone for a while and to see if the issues die down. I guess some of the problems were also caused by us living together and my parents having to see him every time they came to visit me. It seems to me like you already made your decision. You've sided with your parents and are moving out. In my opinion, it would be hard for a relationship to survive this. I would be surprised if your BF wasn't taking this personally. The vibe I get seems to be that you want him to do a lot with and for your family. Perhaps it's cultural, because many of these things wouldn't necessarily have been expected in my relationships, like wishing my SO's parent happy anniversary, which I'd never done even after getting married. It also seems like your parents are very involved in both your life and relationship. That would have been the end of the relationship for me. He's seeing you, not your parents, so while I'd be courteous, there's not much more I'd expect be required. I don't feel like we're getting the full story here. Could it be that your BF is passive-aggressively doing these things because he feels like your parents haven't cut the apron strings? You both come from distinctive cultures and certain gender expectations may be part of your lives. Have you had a direct conversation on why these things are happening and why he does what he does without any emotional intent? Your parents are over way too much for him, sounds like. I personally think your parents are the rude ones here. He's not their son and they are treating him like he is. Usually you'd want to be treated like family, but in this case they're giving him all the idiosyncratic behavior of having grown up with them, the stuff that you tolerate, don't blink an eye at and are here asking us about, but none of the unconditional love. I think the only truly annoying behavior on that list is the lateness, but here's the thing. That's not a deal breaker by itself and you know it. It's often a symptom of something like ADHD, especially if he does try hard. Time management can be really hard for me, for example. Anyway, I feel like your parents are way too involved in your relationship, and if I were you I'd personally be worried that they might drive him off. I think if you really love this guy, you might want to be more of a buffer for him with your family. I wouldn't bother moving out to try and solve this, you know in your heart that won't work. You need to stand up for him. If you made it to the end of the video, thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe and share, and we will see you in the next video.